The main skill is compare and contrast, and the objectives for the students is I want them to be able to learn characters' point of view within stories. Comparing and contrasting helps that skill. It helps them become more fluent readers. It helps them to better understand fourth grade text. We will also be writing using comparing and contrasting, so they're going to learn some spectacular words, some good read words. They've already written essays, and we've already worked on cold reads with compare and contrast. So I give them a new story each day, and they try to identify the comparisons and the contrasts between the characters.
All right, can somebody tell me what our skill is this week? Sam?
Compare and contrast.
Compare and contrast. We've worked on it, we've read stories, and we've been able to compare and contrast points of view of different characters. Can somebody tell me what is it to compare something?
How it's alike.
How they're alike. How one thing's alike?
How both things are alike.
How two things are alike. What's contrast then? Jillian?
How two things are different.
How two things are different. So today we're going to work on compare and contrast, and we're going to accomplish some skills today with it. So what I want you to do first is open up your Google Chromebooks, log into your Drive, and under Shared With Me is this presentation.
When you have a whole class lesson, you're expecting everyone to move at the same pace. And when you have a student-led lesson, each student gets to move at their pace. We will all end up at the same ending. We just won't take all the same routes to get there. So I prefer student-led lessons because they gain a lot more from it. I have provided within the presentation that I have shared with them, I've provided many resources. There's 3 different tasks that are leveled. They will start off easy and they will get to continually get harder. So they start off with just identifying the anchor words for compare and contrast. And then by the end, they're using them in their writing and their essays.
I can objective. What are we going to be able to do by the end of this lesson? Can somebody read me the first I can statement? Connor.
I can compare and contrast different stories by thinking about the different points of view.
Have we done this? Yesterday we did a worksheet with a story. Do you remember what that girl did? Adam? Magic tricks. What were they comparing those magic tricks to? Eddie?
How the first time doing her magic tricks and her second time?
Her first magic tricks to her second magic tricks. Different points of view. You compare and contrasted the different points of view of how her day went with her first set of magic tricks and how her day went with her second set of magic tricks. Can somebody read me the second I can? Kylie?
I can read with fluency and accuracy it takes to understand fourth grade text.
Fluency and accuracy. That means I can read fluently what I'm reading in fourth grade, and I can understand what I'm reading in fourth grade. Up to this point with compare and contrast, have we been able to understand everything we've been reading? Yes. Okay, now we're going to switch over into some writing aspects of compare and contrast, something we haven't done yet that we're going to practice today. What's our third I can we're going to do today, Jillian?
I can choose interesting words and phrases to help others understand my idea.
So instead of saying how they're alike and how they're different, we're going to start learning some new words to put in place with that to make our writing spectacular, to beef it up. When reading text or writing an essay, how much do you really already know about comparing and contrasting? Let's find out. Go ahead and click Padlet. What I would like you to do is, if you have a comment that you can make about comparing and contrasting, I'd like you to post it to our brainstorming wall. If you have nothing to say, guess what? It's okay this time to have nothing to say. So if you can't think of anything to post, let it go. Okay. If anybody can think of something to post that has to do with comparing and contrasting, post it for me, please. Like, what does compare mean? What does contrast mean? Can you think of any key words that you may use with comparing and contrasting? Or how about, what do you want to know about comparing and contrasting? Check out your classmates' thoughts.
I would say most of my lessons at the beginning of the year started off as a whole group, but in reading class, I did start individual tasks immediately. So from the beginning, they were very used to that. And in the lower grade levels, they do centers. So in fourth grade, it's the same concept as centers, but we just use a different word, tasks, because it sounds just a little bit more fourth grade. So I do believe they've been prepared in the stations. They may not have been prepared with finishing an entire task on their own, but at that age, they're sponges and they're so adaptable that even just doing it once, they understand it and are able to repeat week after week.
All right, this is a compare and contrast guide. When you open the guide up, it gives you so many resources that you can use when you're going to complete your tasks today. It tells you what compare and contrast is. It tells you why you should compare and contrast, and to be careful when picking two things to compare and contrast when you're writing. For instance, you're not going to compare butter to an apple. Not a good comparison. Can somebody give me a better comparison? Cameron? Dogs versus cats. That we can compare and contrast. It is telling you the different ways you can write your essay. So you could say, this has this, this has this, or you can take your first topic and say them all together and then say them all different. So there's different ways you're going to be able to write your essay. You come in here and pick what works for you. This is your resource. Graphic organizers. We're going to be using the Venn diagram today. So as you keep going through this, you will notice it has anything you may need. You can go straight to these tabs and find things out. This is a resource for you to use today, okay? Here are your anchor chart words. Instead of using a like and different, this is where you can go to find what better words can I use to make my writing better. Can somebody give me another word for compare? Nate. Both. Nick? Same. Brock? Like. Ali? Similar. Have we heard these words before? Yes. Okay. If we move to contrast, what are some words we're going to be able to use in our writing and help us identify comparing and contrasting when we're reading? Dylan? On the other hand. Jillian?
Instead.
Instead. Yeah. Kylie or Alyssa?
However.
However. Can we see how those words change your track and make you think of something else? It kind of stops you and then makes your brain think a different way. Adam? Unlike. Thank you. You're going to use that page to complete some of your tasks.
Each task is differentiated, as in the first task will start off the easiest, all the way up until the third task will become the hardest. And then within each task itself, it's also differentiated. So for instance, in task 2, my higher level thinking kids will need to produce 2 compare and contrast sentences, to where my below level will need to produce 1 compare and contrast sentence.
If you notice, we're at task slide number 1 now. There are directions for you to follow. We know anywhere we see something underlined, it's a link to somewhere, correct? So you're going to complete task 3. Task 1, I'm sorry. Once you finish task 1, you're going to move to task 2. Notice your directions don't stop here. They still continue over here. Is this underlined? What does that mean? It's a link. How about these? Links. Have we used these websites? Okay. Task slide 3. You know how when we take our spelling test and it's in that Google form? That's exactly what task 3 is like. It's in a Google form. So at the end, when you finish, you submit it to me. If you happen to finish all 3 tasks, you can move on to a challenge. This is a Google Slides presentation, isn't it? I challenge you to make a Google Slides presentation on comparing and contrasting two things. If you think you're not quite ready for that point, you can come here and I've got 3 practice pages for you, 3 practice websites for you to practice, compare, and contrast. So maybe if you're not quite at the challenge, you can visit this page and then maybe that'll help you be ready for the challenge. Does everyone understand what is expected of the 3 tasks today? Yes. Okay? You have your pink, yellow, and blue cards on your desk. Everyone should have pink up top. That lets me know everyone's on task 1. As you move to task 2, I want you to slide pink to the bottom and have your yellow showing. That way I know where you are, and I know you're on task 2. Also, if you need any help, it helps me help you a lot faster because I know where you are. If you have any questions, you may raise your hand. If you notice that a friend next to you is not right in the middle of something and you have maybe an opportunity to ask them something, please do so. I would like you to usually, like always, ask them first, then ask me. Okay? Does anybody have any questions before you get started? Because now it's not my class, it's your class. Is anybody finished with task 1? Check this board out over here. What's it say in red? Oh. And don't forget to slide that pink to the bottom. Look at us. We're exercising our brains, our bodies.
When they completed the task, I had the exercises at the end so I could be visually aware of when they had completed it. And how do I know they met it is when I go back and look at what they shared with me, and I can observe it then. And then that'll let me know if I need to go back and remediate or reteach to some of my students. I'm a teacher who, 1 is technology, so I like to involve that in everything, and 2 is connecting it to the real world. You often, as adults, ask yourselves, when you were in school, am I ever going to use this? And now that we're older, some of the stuff, are we really ever going to use? So I try to, every concept I teach my kids, connect it and let them know that as they do go through life, they are going to need to know this skill, and eventually they are going to use it, and it's going to come up and they're going to know how.